But in order to be limitless in life, if you're willing to say yes and take a risk, I think that's one of my biggest lessons.
It goes back to listening as well. Make yourself available, Make yourself available to improve something, There's never perfect, right? There's never perfect.
Welcome to Limitless. I'm your host, Lisa Allen, and today I'm speaking with Jamie Serruto. Jamie is a true community leader and civic volunteer. He was born and raised in Millburn, Short Hills, New Jersey, and once was known as one of the youngest elected officials in the state, serving on his local Board of Education in his hometown. He's a proud Eagle Scout and Fordham University alum, and Jamie's commitment to service runs deep. He's a dedicated committee member at his church. He's a member of the Knights of Columbus, and he's an active volunteer on multiple town committees. Jamie's passion for his community is contagious, and he's here to share how any of us can live a limitless life by embracing what we love, saying yes to new opportunities, and growing through service. His story is a powerful reminder that we all have the potential to make a difference and create lasting impact where we live and beyond. Jamie, thank you so much for coming on today. This is really great to have you. You are my youngest guest, by the way.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. It's great to be on here.
All right.
Very special.
All right, so the reason why I thought you would be a perfect guest for today, for Limitless, is because I think that you can be limitless at any age. And I've known you for a very long time, probably about 10 years or so. And when I met you, I think maybe you were 16, but you have done more in your short amount of time in your life than most people do in a lifetime. And I really want you to share your story because you're an inspiration to me, and seeing how incredibly productive and willing to give to your community you are. But also I think you can be a great mentor and inspiration for your generation too. So that's, I'm excited to share your story.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I'm really blessed. I grew up obviously here in New Jersey, in Millburn, Short Hills, and the great state is, of course, no better place to grow up. Community is what ultimately filled my veins. As you mentioned, at a young age, I was exposed to so many great mentors and community organizations, and I said yes. I saw doors open, and I leaped through.
Yeah. Where did you start? So let's kind of back up for everybody because I think it's really important that the listeners know when you started. So when was the age that you started volunteering and what kind of work were you doing?
So I was, I was middle school coming out, first attending all the sporting events with my siblings, whether it be wrestling or football or baseball or my sister's soccer and basketball. And, I started to get involved in the snack bar. I started to meet, the different people buying tickets. I was always interested in sort of the background and the operations. And, lo and behold, I entered the Boy Scouts. And the Boy Scouts is really where I owe my beginning to. Because, it allowed me to really build a respect for my community, those who serve, as first responders, those who serve our country. And, lo and behold, when you meet somebody, you meet more people, and you meet more people. And eventually, I was able to, get involved in my high school video classes and start to film some of our local municipal meetings. And at one point,
and when you say municipal meetings, you mean like council, planning, zoning?
Planning,
okay.
Board of Education, and in particular, when you're at a meeting, you're listening, you're engaging, you're thinking about what's going on. And so I literally went from one end of the room to the other. I was blessed to be able to be elected to my local Board of Education at a very young age. And
what age was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, that was at 18.
Wow.
I had turned 18 just 16 days before the election, and that was my skyrocket because I was able to not only be a representative of my age group, but also, through my community activities, be able to, provide a lens that covered a lot of bases. It wasn't just that I was a young person, but I'm a young person who knows what's going on. Yeah. Who's not afraid to listen, who's not afraid to ask questions. I'm really blessed.
Kind of think back to when you were on the Board of Ed. What were some of your challenges and successes? Do you remember any of those things that you had to overcome because of your age? I think a lot of people probably go, oh, he's 18, he doesn't know anything. But you are the closest to the school at that point. What are some of the successes and obstacles that you had in those years?
I was blessed because every day, the morning after a board meeting, I'd have to live with the realities that the decisions that we made. Right, I really had a stake in what was going on. Obviously, I learned so much. Right, I served on the finance committee over $1 million budget. Served, on buildings and grounds and in the curriculum, and as a board dealing with negotiations and personnel. A lot of these areas were very new to me. And so I think that was one area that I had to make very informed decisions. I had to, read. I had to do my homework. I had to come to the table with, with smart questions, with creative questions that the constituents would make very informed decisions. I had to, read. I had to do my homework. I had to come to the table with, with smart questions, with creative questions that the constituents would want me to ask. It eventually, sort of snowballed into, Jamie knows, Jamie's looking out for the other side, right? Yeah. Because the students aren't always asking certain questions. They're not always understanding every intricacy of the budget, and it's also long term, right? I'm thinking, and as a board, we were always thinking about the long term of the district. And so it's difficult, right, at a young age to think about 10 years ago, right? That's most of my life, right. Growing up, and that's really one aspect that was of course, challenging, but I was happy to overcome because, it's the way I live my life now. I'm always thinking ahead. If there's a decision being made, right, whether it's in an organization or a charity or in a government area, it's what does this decision mean right now? And what does this decision mean in the future? I really learned a lot about that.
Tell me more about that.
I think, when you're thinking about a school facility, for example, whether it's a gymnasium, right? If the district's going to grow, if it's going to shrink, if something's going to move around, or you're thinking about a downtown, right? And local businesses. What is the type of visioning that you need to have in order to build a prosperous downtown? I got very involved in my local downtown with our local Chamber of Commerce and our downtown organizations because I wanted to meet the merchants, right? I wanted to meet the people who I interfaced with and that my friends interfaced with, and lo and behold, that's vision, right? Because you meet people where they are. And you understand the history, right? Our historical societies, our civic organizations that have been around forever. Being able to talk with people and actually understand their perspectives, right? And their history and why they're here, why are they still here, right? Maybe why some have gone away. Encompasses what community is all about, I think.
Yeah. Was there any moment where you're like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that?
I think many.
Okay.
Many. And I think it's so important to listen. Listening is a really important skill. And for me, that's how I overcame a number of challenges. Wow. Whether that's in my personal or professional life, as I still try to grow today, is listening, is taking a step back, right? With our devices these days, or with what's going on wherever, in a big city or small city, so much movement. When you take a step back, you can realize how different you see things, rather than in haste. So the speed at which you send an email, the speed at which you send a text, when you feel like you're in a pressure cooker and you make a decision as opposed to, taking a step outside.
Right, responding versus reacting.
Bingo.
Right.
Responding versus reacting.
Yeah, and I always tell my son, who's younger than you, and is your age when you actually went on to the Board of Ed now. I've always said through his life, because he grew up with a phone, don't fight with people over text. Don't respond over text.
Yeah.
Call them.
Yeah.
Right? Or wait and step back and don't put anything in text, because you're absolutely right. I think that listening and being able to think through what's happening on the phone or on social media, an immediate reaction is what it has exacerbated some of the issues. So I think that's really excellent advice, especially, for any age, I have to be honest. So
No
what did
question.
you do after Board of Ed?
So after Board of Ed, I really stayed entrenched with my community. I'm an Eagle Scout, and I'm really very prideful of how the scouting community brought me through the community. I'm a part of my Knights of Columbus, my parish pastoral council with my church, and the 4th of July committee, which is one of the most exciting things for me. Anything to do with our downtown parks, the public settings. And I'll tell you why, because that's where you meet people. You don't just meet your best friends. You don't just meet your immediate neighbors. You meet everybody. So I really, got very involved with my church in particular, St. Rose of Lima, and also with our downtown celebrations. Really a passion of mine, and so rewarding.
If you think back to all the things that you did early on, your Eagle Scouts, Boy Scouts, BOE, Board of Ed, all the things that you volunteered for the organizations you volunteered for, is there anything in particular that stand out that you're really proud of?
Well, I am incredibly proud that I was able to rally the town to rename the street behind the Short Hills Mall after my late great Scoutmaster, Ken Finneran. Was this combined, honestly, this brought together everything for me. I was blessed to be under the watch of Scoutmaster Ken Finneran, and bringing together my public side and community engagement side, was able to lobby the township committee to pass the street naming. We had an amazing launch and in front of in the rear of the Short Hills Mall, and gathered aspects of all over the community. I am so proud of that moment. It'll stick with me forever. To honor somebody that mentored me, that gave so much, and there were ups and downs, right? I had to lobby. I had to learn from experience. I had to ask questions. I was pushed 2 steps backward, and I had to walk 3 steps forward. So. The naming of Finneran Way is by far what sticks out in my mind.
That sounds incredible, both unifying and also a leadership lesson, in that you only learn really by doing. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. You and I have had conversations outside of this, obviously, and a lot of people tell me that there's something that anchors them. In order to be a leader, in order to have success, you have to find something that anchors you. Some people lean on meditation, but your faith life is really important. Will you touch a little bit on that? I think because that's an important piece of who you are and why you do the things and what drives you.
Sure. I think it's so important to be able to have something that anchors you. And every day, it's something that I stick to a ritual. I think for me, it's prayer. It's either going to Mass every day or taking time for myself to pray, or to go through my day, go through my strengths and weaknesses in a private, individual setting. It's about a pause. It's about taking a pause, and that really does anchor me, because and that could be a workout, that could be your time listening to a podcast, that could be, but just that time, and for me, it's prayer is so important, because you're really brought back to reality, I think.
Yeah.
It really does anchor me, and I think it allows you to think clearly. It allows you to reflect,
Yeah.
you know.
There's, habits are important. In order to be successful, our lives are an outcome of our habits, right? Whether they're good habits or not bad habits, but habits that maybe not serve us. Right. And so to me, when I'm listening to you about, if you don't mind that I share this, but
sure.
you said that you go to Mass every single day. That's an extraordinary habit. And it really shows your commitment to who you are in your faith, but also that you have a healthy habit that determines who you are and sets up your day. So yeah. I think that to me is really, I'm going to work on that. So I don't go enough for sure. But does that resonate with you? And that success habits are kind of what drive who we are?
No question. It really does. I do. I go to Mass every day. I have. I've created a very good, healthy habit, right? And it guides my life. I think, I think it is so important to have that. It's so important to have that. It's important to be grounded. It's important to create a space for yourself, right? I mean, as Lisa, as doing a lot of things for other people, putting yourself out there, saying yes. A lot of it's about saying yes, and sometimes when you should be saying no. But like that, it's you're saying yes for yourself. You're saying yes. You're saying yes for yourself.
That actually resonates with me because I actually interviewed Kathleen Smith. She is the CEO of Morph Mom.
Legendary.
Legendary, right? She's amazing. And one of the things she actually said was, say yes. And I've always said to people, when you get into things, people are like, well, how did you do that? How did you get into it? And I'm like, I just said yes. I showed up, I volunteered, and I just want to be able to be a part of my community and grow as a person, grow and help my community. Saying yes is one of those, and when you said say yes, and I'm going to get back to the part of saying no, but in order to be limitless in life, if you're willing to say yes and take a risk, I think that's one of my biggest lessons. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, it goes back to listening as well. But it's about asking, and asking those questions. As I mentioned, I would be in those boardrooms, whether it was on the Board of Education or if it was as a committee member in different capacities. But if you're in a public meeting square, asking the questions. Maybe after a meeting, asking a person who works in a field that you might be interested in, asking them about what brought them there. And thoroughly listening to the response, and doing the research on an industry, doing research on an issue, making yourself an asset. You can always help people, and that's, as I meant, in a charity, in a public organization, in government, like you have to. But if you're going to, you should do it right. You should ask those questions. Make yourself available, Make yourself available to improve something, There's never perfect, right? There's never perfect. And that's what's guided a lot for me. And in particular at my age, be that person in the room. Be that person in the room. Show up. Show up on time. Stay, as late as you need to. Be a good communicator. And always show respect. Right? You never know. Somebody could be doing something for 100 years, and maybe they're doing things not the way that you think they should be doing them, but they have institutional knowledge. You have to show that respect.
I really appreciate that too. I always tell my boys, first of all, being on time is 5 minutes early.
Yep.
And I always say to them, show up early or on time, never be late.
Never be late.
Be the last to leave. And I always tell my kids too, you don't necessarily have to be the smartest person in the room.
100%.
Be someone with character who is well liked. And if you're working really hard and you're showing initiative and you're showing up and you want to learn and be a part of something and keep saying yes, I'm like, people will keep you around, or you might get a great job from that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. All right, so you did the Boy Scouts, you've done Board of Ed, you're immersed in your church. 4th of July, that was one you mentioned too. Tell us a little bit about the 4th of July committee.
Well, the 4th of July Committee brings together an amazing group of volunteers. We are all, in Millburn Short Hills, it is all volunteer-based. We're blessed with the support of our first responders in the town, no question. And, and I want to give a shout out to our first responders, of course. I've been involved for the last several years, and it's just so exciting, not only to celebrate the independence of our country, which, we're almost at, 250 years.
I know.
Which is,
That's incredible.
So exciting. So we're building up for a huge celebration in town. Well, I'll be serving on the 250th, celebration committee, but that, and on top of Memorial Day, and on top of, our annual tree lighting in town, these are areas, where community is built, right? It's celebration. So I've learned so much about organization, right? About budgeting, about sometimes making very difficult decisions, right? Balancing the public, public relations, all from being involved in something like this. The 4th of July Committee does so much good, brings so many smiles. Who doesn't love fireworks, right?
I know. It's such a common ground event.
Common ground, common ground.
Right.
And I know we always strive for that.
Yeah.
So that's been an incredible piece to be involved with there for probably the last 10 years, to be honest. And, but more involved recently in taking a leadership role. You have to prioritize these things, and you have to really soak up these kinds of moments because, as I said, that's where community is made, but that's also where you have that common ground, right? Where you can meet your neighbors, where you can be yourself and see others be themselves, right? They're taking off their jackets and ties and dresses. People are in their element.
Yeah.
That's what I love about seeing also in celebrations.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I've heard a few times where we say yes. When did you learn? Because in order to be successful, you also have to learn when to say no. What example can you give me? When did you learn how to say no? And it actually helped free you.
Well, I learned how to say no when, there was a Thursday evening where I had, after I was kind of aging out of the Scouts, I was an Eagle Scout, but an adult leader, I had a commitment then. I had a commitment for my, Board of Ed duties. There was a committee meeting for something going on in town and something else. And somebody asked me if I, wanted to get dinner and show up to another event. And I said, whoa. I am not taking the time for myself. I am not being the best version of myself by having 100 things on a Thursday night, let alone, any night, right? But I think, it was so important, as I said, anchoring in my faith life, to set me up for success every day. But, keeping a very good schedule, knowing that you have to take some time for yourself. You have to take some time at home. You have to take some time with your family. When I was, for example, having 100 things on one day, and and nearly missing a special occasion, with my family, that's where I kind of said, hold on. But I think it's important, as you're getting involved, to set those expectations up front, right? To not commit yourself, to be very communicative. A good communicator will succeed in most areas of life, right?
Absolutely.
When you communicate about what works for you, what works for the organization, and it's about communicating with yourself, right? I mean, that's how I realized it, because I communicated with myself, and I said, you can't burn it at both ends. You gotta sleep at night. You gotta
sleep. What's that?
I know, right? I know. But that's one reality that hit me, was when there was just one day that everything just hit the fan, and I had to say, well, I gotta maybe take one thing out, and also something that you don't have a strong connection with anymore.
That's a great,
how much, right? They talk about the stock market and, right, investing. How much do you want to invest in certain things? If you think you've gotten all that you can, or I should say gotten all, but by giving all,
grown out of it.
Grown out of it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a time for reflection.
I love that. So you went to Fordham, and
Yep.
you've graduated, and which is an incredible school.
Thank
Did you love Fordham?
I absolutely loved it. I was able to flourish because of the community that was built. It was a moderately sized school. It's a smaller sized school in New York City, right? The capital of the world, I would describe. And I met the best friends over there, because I was able to be myself. I got involved, of course, with my faith life and in the student government. And frankly, with the communities of New York City, through campus ministry and Center for Community Engagement, learning about your neighbors, right? That was an incredible chapter of my life, Fordham University.
I was going to say, can you expand on that? Because you've been very consistent in terms of always giving back to your community. Yeah. Wherever you go, you get involved.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Fordham. Like, how did you find the things that you were interested in and staying and elevating those in your life and not feeling overwhelmed while you're still in college? Because there's a lot going on in college. So
There is. And number one, I owe, I think, everything to my friends and to the community that we were able to build. But I do, so I have to shout them out. I have amazing friends and roommates who mean so much to me. But I was able to learn a lot, by showing up, right? Showing up to club meetings, showing up to the student government when I saw something that I thought wasn't 100%, the way that I maybe would have done, or my friends. We spoke up. I think what's so amazing is campus ministry and the student government, because it's another area to interface with people. It's another area to see people. It's another area to ask questions. I got very passionate about a couple of campus issues, right? And I said, I did see it within myself. I wanted to give back. I wanted to give my time. I wanted to say, well, I was a freshman and XYZ was not the way that I would have thought it would have gone. How can I make an impact so that the incoming freshmen, one very small example is being involved with the Facilities and Dining Committee. I became the chairman and the vice president of that area on the student government. And in conjunction with the administration, we launched massive renovation of our dining hall.
Wow.
Ratings of food at Fordham were, down here, and beautiful facility. And it's a small thing, but
huge impact.
I wanted to create a legacy for others.
It's kind of like that 80-20. A small thing makes the biggest impact.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Our time is winding down. So I have a very important question for you. So you have since graduated from Fordham, and you are on your career journey. What are you going to do this year to be limitless? How do you practice being limitless?
I think I practiced being limitless by taking that time each day, setting myself up for success, right? Or as successful as I can be. Taking that time to pray, taking that time to work out, to try to keep positive energy around me. I think that's the best way for me to be limitless. I think it's by doing what I love and surrounding myself with good people. I really, really feel like I will say yes. I will say yes to the things that come up to me, that come forward, that are most compatible with me, and I'm going to say no, and to the things that aren't, and provide that space so I can live a healthy life.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate what you brought to this interview. I learned so much about you that I didn't even know. So thank you for being a role model and a mentor to people in your age group, but also just bringing some fresh perspective and teaching me how, you can be limitless.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Lisa.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for joining us today. This is Limitless, and I'm Lisa Allen. For more programming like this, you can visit our HTTV website, you can visit any of our social media channels, and we look forward to seeing you on our next episode of Limitless.